Hello everyone and welcome back to another rendition of Hitbox Analysis. Today we are surprisingly enough taking a look at the first Pokemon. Somehow we have gone this long without doing so yet. However, today we're taking a look at Incineroar. While he may be the first Pokemon, he's certainly not the first heavyweight character we have looked at. So I have a bit of an idea how this will go down. But as always, the best way to check is to just take a look. If you want to support me and vote on what characters I should cover in the future, there is a new poll live on my Patreon right now. You can also let me know what characters you want me to put on the poll in the comments below. Saves me a bit of thinking. The visuals, as usual, are made by Zeckemyro, links to everything in the description. Oh, and also, just for fun, I'll be trying to use the actual names of the fighting techniques displayed in these moves, courtesy of the Smash Wiki. Some of the names are kind of funny, I thought it would just be a fun idea. Incineroar's jab is the usual 3-hit combo we all know and love. The move is a knife hand strike into a knee lift, with the final hit being a sock knot. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong, it's Thai apparently. The first hit has 4 hitboxes which stun you in place, 2 of which are overlaid. Much like most jabs, they set up into the second hit, which looks like this. It is a knee kick, which also just stuns you consisting of 3 hitboxes. And finally the launcher is 3 hitboxes in front of Incineroar that all launch away. The hitboxes are not exactly big, which is a bit unusual for a launcher like this. It also looks a little bit weird how it doesn't exactly follow his arm the way you would expect. Besides that, it's a normal jab. It does its job. For F-tilt we have a knife hand thrust out in front of him. It consists of 3 hitboxes and does reach quite far. The red hitbox is the sweet spot, dealing 1 more damage. The move can be angled up or down, however the hitboxes don't really change that much. Besides that, the move is pretty straightforward. It is however a pretty rare case of having a move like this with hitboxes that don't overlap, with there actually being a little gap in between the purple and red hitbox. It's a nice move and pretty fast all things considered, quite strong as well, just a good move. Down tilt is a leg sweep, and is in many ways similar to F-tilt, being 3 hitboxes that all launch up. Unlike F-tilt however, the hitboxes here deal the same damage. The move is not too interesting, it's a nice combo tool that puts the opponent in a pretty bad spot. His legs are also intangible during the attack, and it is also pretty disjointed as well, though not by too much, but it does make it quite a lot safer. Up tilt is an overhead, well, head attack. I guess it's a headbutt, but I kinda doubt they actually use this one in martial arts. The move has 2 hitboxes which follow after Incineroar, and they have the same damage and knockback. The move lasts for a while, being active all the way from one side to the other. In addition, Incineroar's head is intangible for the active frames, making it a little safer when catching aerial opponents. It's a decent move overall. Moving on to dash attack, where we have the pretty standard show and dance. It's a knee bash, only having a single hitbox, which looks like this. During the first few frames, the move is stronger. However, the hitbox gets a little weaker and smaller after a while. Hitbox wise, it's not the most impressive thing in the world, but he does jump while using the move, meaning he can actually hurt box shift over low attacks, which is cool at least. Incineroar's grab range is actually pretty good. I mean, it's not unexpected from a heavyweight, but it's also not guaranteed. His standing grab is frame 7, which is actually pretty fast for a big character like him. Dash and pivot grab are also quite good relatively speaking, having similar ranges, but they're not as fast or practical, though they do have a little bit more range. Pretty good grabs overall, and he does get good rewards off of them. I know I don't usually do this, but I want to have a look at his throw animations, mostly just because I want to read the names of the throws, but to be fair, he does actually have 2 throws that have collateral hitboxes, which are hitboxes that appear during throw animations, meant to hit other opponents besides the one being thrown, meaning they don't actually impact anything outside doubles or free-for-alls, which is why I usually don't talk about them. Down and up throw don't have collateral hitboxes, but down throw is a choke slam, while up throw is an Argentine backbreaker rack drop, which is such a fun name. Now, back throw is a German suplex, and does actually have a hitbox. It hits behind Incineroar and launches the opponent away, but the one I've been waiting for is the F throw. While spinning, he has a huge hitbox out in front of him that follow him for the entire move. It's very fun to look at actually, but again, will probably not be too relevant in the grand scheme of things. Let me know if you want me to cover more collateral hitboxes in the future, by the way. I usually leave them out since they're not too relevant most of the time, but if people want to see them, I can make an effort to leave them in. Now let's have a look at some aerials, starting off with neutral air. The technique is known as a splash. You know, it's like when wrestlers jump off the poles in the ring and probably hurt themselves a lot, I would imagine. The move has a single hitbox. Initially, the hitbox covers all of Incineroar and quite a bit to his side as well. However, after a little while, it gets a bit weaker and smaller, now only covering his entire body. On the later half, the knockback is a lot lower as well, so you can actually combo with it now. It's a solid move on all fronts really. It lingers for a good while and has a lot of utility. For there is a drop kick consisting of 2 hitboxes, with the purple hitbox being the sweet spot and the red one being the sour spot. The difference however is only 1%, so it doesn't really matter that much. The hitboxes linger for quite a while, though not as long as neutral air. It's nice for catching people jumping off ledge or just people in the air in general. It's a strong move but pretty simple. For back air we have a hook kick. In many ways it's similar to forward air, as in the move is almost identical, having 2 hitboxes where the outer hitbox is stronger than the closer one. With this move however, the discrepancy is a lot bigger between the 2 hitboxes, having a 2% difference. The hitboxes are also a lot smaller overall and don't linger for quite as long, but in return they are a lot more powerful. It's also fairly quick, although with Incineroar's lack of, well, any good movement really. It might be a bit hard to pressure with it unless the opponent is already up close. It's a strong move though, all things considered. Incineroar's up air is a crescent kick, being a kick up above him going in an arc. And once again we see the return of the two old reliable hitboxes he seems to use for all his aerials. However, in this case both hitboxes are the same and deal the same damage, so you don't have to worry about spacing it to get the good hit. The hitboxes trail after his leg on the way over, and end about where you would expect it to, a little before it completes a full 180-degree arc. Had Incineroar been DLC, you know that move would have lasted for like 3 extra frames and could hit people on the other side of him when landing with it. Despite the move having no intangibility, it's still a pretty alright move, though you might find yourself trading with it a lot because of said lack of intangibility. Now, based on the previous moves, can you guess how many hitboxes Incineroar's down air is going to have? If you guessed 2, that is correct. And if you guessed anything else, well then good on you for not succumbing to confirmation bias. But yes, the answer is 2. It is a double foot stomp. The red hitbox is the strongest and is the one that spikes, while the purple one is the weaker and just launch away. After 4 frames, the red hitbox also gets weaker and no longer spikes. It's the usual spike story, nothing new here really, but it's always nice to have. Moving on to his specials, starting with up B, we have Cross Chop, which as far as I know is not a real thing, but at least it is in Pokemon, being a move that he gets. The move consists of a rise into the air and a dive towards the ground. On the first frame you have this lovely cluster of hitboxes. 2 of the hitboxes hit grounded opponents, while the remaining 3 hit aerial. The hitbox that reaches further out is aerial only, however they all launch up and try to set up into the next part of the move. After this, while ascending, he has 2 hitboxes that just kinda nudge you slightly back and stun you, to account for the position while rising. While descending, on the first frame he has a single hitbox that launches up actually. On this frame it hits both grounded and aerial opponents. The purple one being the grounded one, while the red one is the aerial one. The red hitbox now launches you towards the ground while Incineroar is landing. The purple one, however, launches up and deals significantly more damage, dealing 13 instead of 3.5. Naturally, this is because you now miss the landing hitbox, which, speaking of, when he lands you also have these 3 hitboxes to launch you away. Pretty powerful move overall if you can land it, though it might be a bit inconsistent since it's a multi-part move. For side B we have a Lowland Whip, which is a command grab. It's based on the Irish Whip, or the hammer throw as it's also known. When used on the ground it looks like this. On the first few frames, it also has some win boxes that push you back, and after that it's all just grab boxes, which as you might expect do ignore shields. The aerial version is pretty much the same. If you land it, you will throw the opponent into some ropes and bounce them back. After which you have 3 different throws you can do depending on the timing of the upcoming A-press. If you time it just as the opponent touches Incineroar, you get the Lariat, where he launches you backwards. This is the most powerful version of the move in most situations. If your timing is too early, he instead does a back body drop, which launches you directly upwards. Should you mess up the timing completely, as in you press it too late, the opponent just hits you in the face and you even take a bit of damage. Really, it's just a slap in the face. Now, the hitboxes you see on the throws here are not really collateral hitboxes, since they do only apply to the opponent that got hit by the grab, but it's not like you can avoid them anyway since you're in the command grab. So for down B we have Revenge, which is a counter. However, it does function in quite a unique way. First and foremost, when you use the counter, unlike a lot of other counters in the game, it does not have a designated hitbox. Instead, his body just gets special armor that armors some of the damage and triggers the counterattack hit of the move. The armor in this case reduces the attack damage by 40%. As for the counterattack, it's pretty huge and launches away. The damage here is set to always be 2.4, which is not a lot, but that's not really the point of the move. After you have armored the hit, Incineroar gets powered up, and the next attack he performs will have a ton of extra damage and knockback. The multiplier is relative to the strength of the move you armored, with a max multiplier of ×3 and a minimum of 1.5. The formula for calculating it looks like this, where the variable D is the incoming damage. But in simpler terms, if you armor 20% damage or more, you get 3 times multiplier, and anything below that scales down to a minimum of 1.5. In addition, the multiplier is different if you already have Revenge active and armor another attack, in which it looks like this. In this case, the new variable M is the multiplier from the previous Revenge. Essentially, it adds up some damage from the newly armored attack, and adds it to the multiplier, making it stronger. Now, the thing about Revenge is that it does not actually apply the damage multiplier of the knockback to the move directly, allowing the move to deal potentially absurd amounts of damage, without instantly destroying the opponent. Instead, every move has its own knockback multiplier that scales proportionally to how close to the max the damage multiplier is. Here's a list of the knockback multipliers depending on the move. These values assume that the damage multiplier is at a max of 3 times, as in these are the max knockback multiplier values, going from ×1 to whatever the max is. So the move will still kill a lot earlier, however not as early as if the moves actually use the damage multiplier. And lastly, the boost lasts for 60 seconds, either until you land an attack or the timer runs out. Every time you whiff a move, it also reduces by a set amount of time from the boost. Another way to remove the Revenge is also by grabbing and throwing Incineroar, which just removes it outright. That was a lot more complicated than I thought it was going to be, but there it is, so let's move on. So for neutral B we have Darkest Lariat, which is a bunch of discus lariats performed rapidly. Now the hitboxes here are definitely a weird case. Effectively there are 3 hitboxes that all just launch you away, pretty simple stuff. However, in between the active frames, there are also these super tiny slim hitboxes that are not actually active. By keeping the hitbox around, it makes them able to manage the re-hit rate a bit more, making the move unable to hit more times than intended, because they only wanted it to hit a few times. So essentially it's just a workaround to make sure the move does not hit more times than they wanted to, but it sure does look a bit weird. I just can't help but feel like they could have accomplished this in a different way. I mean, I don't really know, I didn't make this game, but you just don't see this too often. Now for the hitboxes, the two in the front deal more damage than the ones in the back. However, after he has turned around, the back ones are now the strongest. During startup, the move also has full body invincibility, which then becomes upper body invincibility, and then for the rest of the move his arms are invincible. It continues like this while the move gets weaker with every rotation. The move is the same when it's used in the air, except it does not have invincibility. Now moving on to the final attacks of the night. Up smash is a double axe handle, which is a wonderful name. Incineroar swings his fist behind him. In this case it has two hitboxes. It's very simple actually. The two hitboxes deal the same damage and stay at the same power all the way, dealing 17 damage each. On top of that, during the active frames his arms are also intangible. It's a solid move and works well for anti-airing. For S smash we have an Enzuigiri, so much variety in these names, man. Now honestly it is a pretty unimpressive F smash. For a move that feels so powerful, the hitbox is honestly very tame. It looks like this, being two hitboxes, one huge one on his foot and one tiny one on his leg. The purple hitbox is a sweet spot and is, all things considered, pretty disjointed. Besides that, it's pretty straightforward. It hits like a truck and does at least last for a few frames, so it's not all so bad. And finally, for our last move at night, we have a jumping splash, where Incineroar leaps into the air and, well, splashes down onto the ground. Wait a minute, Incineroar can't even learn Splash. What the heck is this? Now, this is not the first jumping splash we have ever seen, however, it's also not the most impressive one. Besides all the hitbox shifting aspects of it, it only has a single hitbox, which appears a little bit before he hits the ground, staying active until he lands. It does not have the classic shockwave hitbox to the sides, which does give it a bit less range, but it still does cover quite a bit. It's a strong move, nothing to be trifled with, and also the not so subtle hitbox shifting does make the move tricky sometimes. However, that is all of Incineroar's hitboxes. It's not my first time looking at a heavyweight character, so I am pretty used to seeing how the hitboxes for them are designed. However, I do kinda like how they made Incineroar a lot more of a grappler-oriented character, feeling a bit of an untouched niche as far as character designs go. He does have a lot of unorthodox heavyweight moves as well, but kinda suffers from a lack of movement speed and just general mobility. Though to be fair, at least up close he's a very scary opponent for sure. However, I think that will do it for now. So thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.